7 handicap, looking to create a more consistent swing path to tighten the dispersion of all shots with all clubs. You've included both angles with your driver and iron swing, so this video will be on the longer side as we include some detail on each one of these swings and then throw in a torque comparison towards the end. So directional issues, as stated in the comments, we'll start with the down the line view. Overall stance and posture look okay, although there's a bit too much knee flex, which I think is creating some of that activity or overactivity in your lower body in the swing. So reducing knee flex and standing just a little bit taller, I think would get you just in a slightly better position. But not as necessary, as you look pretty athletic with that move, and the takeaway does get the activity in your knees, turning your hips open and keeping that club working right upside your path line. Good tilts of your body, and I think you're getting to the top of your backswing just fine with, again, like I said, a lot of flex in that front knee and a lot of hip turn. So there's not a great X factor separation or potential power. We'll talk about this wrist angle up at the top, as it's not so bad, but there's a slight cupping and you don't really get that club face to close down in time coming through impact. So with that club shaft getting inside or below that yellow line, you're traveling well from inside to out, and with that slightly open face, that ball into out and open will push. Maybe even push slice if that face is really open. So there are two potential fixes for what you're trying to do. You can either try to retain that swing path from the inside and try to close up that face to play more of a draw, but that will force your body mechanics to try to get away from some of this early extension that you're doing with your spine. We'll talk about the turn, we'll talk about what you need to do, but most of it starts from the top, because I don't think we need to adjust too much of that aside from the turn and the backswing, but we'll get back to that in a moment. If you can, try to continue to work that right shoulder down, maintaining this posture angle, and like I said, it will require you to turn your hips more out of the way. But you can still lay that shaft down, keep the club path to the inside, but if you do that, we'll need to work on your wrist angles to close the face. And our torque comparison will give you a good example of that. So option 1, keep the path inside, continue dropping the right shoulder, and then work on the club face control. Option 2, which addresses changing the path, again starts at the same top P4 position, but instead of getting as much lateral shifting or bumping as you do in the downswing, which drops that club path, try to instead, contrary to a lot of classic golf instruction, begin by turning more, and that would involve a post or pulling back of the left knee rather than the left knee driving and getting every part of your body shifting towards target. That's what shallows out the club, and that's what brings your low point more forward as well to make a good, decent strike of this. So it's a bit of a conundrum. If you try to turn more from the top, your path will be less inside and more on plane, giving you a more downward angle of attack and strike on the ball, but you might fade it or slice it if that face still continues to stay open. So regardless of what you're trying to do with your path, dropping it down with the shoulder or turning out of it, both will require you to turn and post back on that knee more in the downswing. So this is where we can go on to the face-on view to look a little bit more at that left knee and what's going on here with your hips. So we'll mark that position and also mark your lead hip, where before the club gets pulled back a couple inches, either the camera's shaking a little bit or you're just rocking the weight back with a trigger move of some sway. That's okay, but the more you come back, the more that left knee drives in. You've displaced those hips quite a few inches off the ball. Now you don't chunk it because of that good lower body drive, which gets you back through where you started, but all of that drive stops you from turning, keeps the flex in the left knee, and like I said, stops you from turning that hip completely and fluidly on the way through. So the solution for this is, well, 1, trying to stand up taller, reduce knee flex, and limit how much you're shifting that left knee down and in off the ball. But more importantly, and what I think you can start working on immediately, is the post or pulling back of the left knee. You can see how much lateral shifting there is from top to impact. Instead of moving towards target, we'd like to see it shift a little bit towards target, not get to the outstep of the knee, and then start disappearing behind you, as it's feeling like you're pulling that left pocket back and behind as opposed to driving down and through. Again, this is a you move. This is not for the masses, and this is why personalized golf instruction is necessary. I'd say one thing to one guy and one thing to someone else. So reducing sway, increasing turn is your main theme for what you're wanting to do to straighten out your path and get your iron game a little bit more solid. Now, you've mentioned that your driver swing tends to be a little bit more consistent, and that would make sense if we fast forward to your path, because playing into a more in-to-out path with the driver is easier to get that club face around and play more of a push draw. And that club path is just, again, well too far to the inside, exposing a ton of early extension in that spine. So begin by working on those same things with the iron, and I'd apply it to the driver as well. More turn from the top will get that path a little bit more on plane, so you don't really have to sling it from the inside and pray that you get that face angle lined up just perfectly. So on to our comparison here, which I'll try to jump back and forth a couple times, but it's Tyrrell Hatton. And he's not quite at setup, but he's close to that position. Let's get him back up to here. And at the takeaway to top, the club's going to cover the hands and then get to a fairly similar position, but note the flatness of the left wrist. There's zero bending of that angle, and even as he works through the transition, that left wrist is going to actually continue to bow and create more of a closed face on the way down. So that movement of the wrist closes the face, and you can see how much rotation and extension of the legs he is getting to keep that club path working steep and straight down the target line. Both legs are fully jumping and extending as those hips are clear open, and then the club and hands can pass through. So it's very important to get your lower body to create the space in here by turning, then the right shoulder can work down and the club head can pass through without getting so jammed up. Now, Tyrrell's not a great example of not getting jammed up, as he is notorious for getting that arm to fold in the follow-through because he's working across his body, but that's your prescription. You need to start swinging a little bit more left and stop trying to hit it over the old hotel there. And good luck with those changes. I'll go back to you real quick to take a last look at this frame through impact, how both legs are extended and the spine is down with that shoulder tilt. Now we'll zip back over to you. Won't be the smoothest to get you back to the end of the swing, but we'll try to get right on that same par. About here, watch the legs, lower body, lots of flex down, and then there's still flex in both knees as you come through. So jumping, turning, and posting that lower body will help with your turns. Sorry for the extended ramble. Good luck, sendaswing.com.